And this meeting is for the purpose of, I'm sorry, 1 second. We're at the Winnisquam Regional High School in Tilton, and wow. Start again. All right, I'd like to welcome you to the Tilton Northfield Fire District meeting. It's 7 p.m. It's March 17th, 2025. We're at the Winnisquam Regional High School for the purpose of conducting Fire District annual meeting. My name is Scott Finmore. I'm the moderator for the Tilton Northfield Fire District. I'd like to introduce Fire Chief Mike Sitar and ask him to lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The annual meeting is the time to conduct business at hand, but it's also the time to celebrate the efforts of the fire department. Many of them are here tonight, and they're a very professional group, and they show up when we need them to show up, and they are the best. The fire commissioners are Paul Ozier, Tim Sadler, and Jason Wright. The treasurer for the fire district is Tim Pearson. The clerk for the fire district is Gene Sams. The fire district budget committee includes from Tilton, Jane Alden, from Northfield, and the commissioner's representative Paul Ozier. From Northfield, Paul Blaisdell. From Northfield, Charles Broden. From Northfield, Scott Lewandowski. From Tilton, Dennis Manning. And from Tilton, Eric Park. Thank you for the budget committee for all the work that you've done this year. The moderator's handbook is published by the local government center. It's a large part of what I'm going to reference. I'd like to introduce our two assistant moderators this evening, Jason Durgan and Bob Hardy. I'd like to ask everybody to put your phones on silent mode if you haven't already. All right, as the articles are introduced, I'll ask for a motion in a second. Once we record that, I will recognize someone to speak in the article, so we can get a brief explanation before we open it for further testimony. All testimony and questions must be directed to the moderator. Please present your testimony with courtesy and respect for the entire assembly. If it gets personal, naming names, poorly veiled references to people in my title, these are all issues covered by New Hampshire RSA 40:8, and I will, which I paraphrase, in the event of disorderly behavior, there will be a warning issued by the moderator, and if necessary, we'll ask the police to have escort the person off the premises. Wow. I understand too that when you speak, or please understand too that when you speak, even if you're asking a question, you are providing testimony. Generally speaking, someone tries to answer the question, but no one is obligated to respond. And you know sometimes that nobody knows the answer to the question. With a reasonable level of decorum, you can provide whatever testimony you want, but no one has to respond to someone else's testimony. It's a violation of state law for anyone to ask to speak at the meeting without being recognized by the moderator, for example, when another person has the floor. This is New Hampshire RSA 40:7. Violators are subjected to forfeiting $1 for each offense. Continued offenses will be deemed disorderly. Please remember to express the right to express ourselves and vote relies on conducting government in a civil manner. I'm going to ask you to limit your testimony to around 3 minutes. We have a fairly full warrant tonight, 12, I believe, right? And I'm not suggesting that we won't take whatever time it takes to, but we want to keep the thing moving. As a moderator, I'll try to use my best judgment, and if it's obvious there is a point, and if it's obvious there is a point to, we'll do it, we'll be courteous. However, if things get dragging on a bit, I'm going to ask you to finish up and your point. Okay, so you have to use the microphones. Whenever you get up and speak, you have to please state your name, make sure you say it clearly so it can be recorded. If you have a follow-up question, please request such from the moderator and direct it to the moderator before proceeding. It's not appropriate to have a conversation back and forth on the floor. Prior to holding the annual district meeting is creating a public record, and by keeping minutes and electronically recording the meeting, and that's harder to do, so you need to use the microphones. Sometimes it's difficult to hear someone's name, even if you have to repeat it. You know, we're going to apologize for it, but we have to make sure we get that before we continue. It's my intent to the extent possible, to hear from those who have yet to speak on an issue before somebody else speaks the second time. That's very important, so that everybody has a chance to testify. Motions to call the questions must be made from a voter who is recognized by the moderator to speak. I will not respond to a motion from the shouted up from the assembly. The moderator will not accept motions to call the question or table an article which follows testimony on the part of the person who is making the motion. In other words, you can't say and then cut everybody off. No, you can't call the question and cut everybody else off to speak. If in the judgment of the moderator there hasn't been sufficient debate on a particular issue, I will not accept motions to call the question. Motions to call the question are not debatable and must be approved by 2/3 majority. If you have any doubts, we will come to votes. Any decision of the moderator can be challenged by a vote of the assembly and overturned by a simple majority. Motions to restrict reconsideration of a vote under RSA 40:10, more commonly referred to as protecting your vote, and I will accept that reference for the intention to restrict. I prefer, such motion be made prior to moving on to the next article. As I read the statute, it can be done in time during the meeting, but it must be the cleanest way possible. And before we move on to the next article. All right, the designation space for non-voters, do we have any here tonight? It's up back. So if you are a non-voter, I would ask that you take a seat there. Especially during if you're not a registered voter with no voting card, you may make your way to that space, but unless you're recognized by the moderator, especially during, you must stay there unless you're recognized by the moderator, especially during ballot or secret vote, no milling around, no discussing, etc. There can be times during the meeting when, like during a ballot vote or counting afterwards, where they're sort of informal, and that's fine. Any members of the media here tonight? Okay. You're welcome in our meeting, and you can take pictures and move if you need a vantage point, but you can't even look like you're interviewing anybody or anything like that. All right. So, as a in general, we will be doing voice votes. If we have a call for the vote or a show of hands, a decision of the House or a secret ballot, will be appointing the assistant moderators to account, to accommodate for that we have a clear division of line and counting. And so I ask people to be people positioned in certain areas in the room to make obvious separation for count. Motions to amend an article must be made by a registered voter in the district, must be in writing, and must be signed by the voter making the motion. The motion must be made very clear as to how the article will be amended. I can't tell you how to write the amendment, but sometimes the best thing to do is just rewrite the entire article. So if you're considering doing that, you might want to have that done ahead of time. If, in my opinion, there's a possibility whatsoever that the amendment could be alternatively interpreted, I will not accept the motion. That doesn't mean that we won't get to where you want to go with it, but it could take more time. Do we have any questions? All right. Each article is read by its entirety before being considered. As each article is amended, each article as amended is read by the moderator before the vote. However, the limited discussion However, if there's limited discussion, I may ask if anyone feels necessary to reread the entire article before we vote. Reading the warrant at the start of the meeting is something that has become less of an expectation, but if there's anybody here that needs me to read it beforehand, then now's the time to say something. Okay. A couple of things. Before we get started, we're going to have a brief slideshow. Mr. Sattler will be presenting that. We also are going to have a quick presentation by the Budget Committee, and Mr. Paul Ogier will be doing that. I wanted to mention that Article 10 is a ballot vote, and so unless anybody objects, I'm going to probably start with Article 10 so that we can get the voting process done and out of the way. We'll move on to the other articles in order. No objections? Okay. Mrs. Sattler.
Mr. Moderator. Thank you. Hi, I'm Tim Sattler. I want to thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Your handout has 5 different sets of documentation. You have the budget, the warrant, a copy of the slideshow, information for warrant 4, and then information for warrant 7. So you have all that data available. After the meeting, if you run into anybody who wasn't able to be here and they have questions, all that information is on the fire department website. And before I move on, I have to say that we have to recognize our amazing, dedicated, professional, caring, compassionate firefighters, of which we have several here, and if we could give them a quick round of applause. So last year in review, most of these slides are all here because we get asked these questions, so we wanted to present them to you. We're going to go through them pretty quickly. This one just shows where the calls are. The yellow is the village district, and then we labeled the blue as west, and the green is east. The numbers on the top would be Tilton versus Northfield, so 279 would be west of the village in Tilton versus 175 west of the village, so you see how that works. Next slide. Here's the trends over the last 10 years for those same calls. East going up a little bit, village is flexed a little bit, west is going down, mutual aid is going down. The incidents by town, this tends to be pretty similar from year to year. Last year it was exactly 60 versus 40, so 60% of the calls are in Tilton and 40% over in Northfield. All right, number of incidents. So this is in 5-year increments. You can see the trend. Last year we had 2,195 calls. I'd like to point out that year to date, the last 2.5 months, the call volume is up 34%. Don't really know why, but we're having a lot of calls so far this year. Breakdown by day of the week. Again, doesn't really show any trend there. We get equal numbers of calls. Calls by hour of the day. There's a lot of information there, but we start at midnight and go to midnight. The tan color is the first call. The maroon color is the simultaneous or second call while we're still at the first call. And again, you see obviously more calls during the day, and the simultaneous calls seem to carry the same trend. All right, average arrival time, first call, 6 minutes, 20 seconds. The one that's more, I think, important is the second or simultaneous call, that we're able to get to that second call fairly reasonably quick as well. And last year, 43% of the calls were simultaneous, so we were responding to a second call while we were still at the first call. These are the types of incidents. We won't go through them all, but the green, the largest section there is the EMS. EMS incidents by age, so of those approximately 70% of the calls, almost 70% of them are from people aged 50 and older, and our community continues to age, so we would expect that. Mutual aid, so we pulled from 2020 to 2024, and the first bar is what was given, and the maroon is the ambulance calls versus non-ambulance calls, and then what we received in the second bar. And then 2024, the same information with more men on and more equipment. We were able to not need as many mutual aid responses, nor are we, with the other towns, being able to take care of their calls, nor are we required to give as many mutual aid calls. But you do see that the ambulance calls received and given is more even than prior. Billing receipts for ambulance, so again, over the last 5 years, because we're having more calls, we're receiving more revenue from the ambulance billing. Operating budget, this will be one of the warrant articles. Last year's budget was $3,555,019. This year the budget is $3,710,511, which is a 4.4% increase, mostly due to wages, benefits, insurance, and water. Budget by town. This is where the fire department gets its revenue. So 64% comes from Tilton, 36% comes from Northfield. Balances in our accounts as of the end of the year. So our unassigned fund balance, the warrant articles that we'll be voting on tonight, total $61,888, which will leave us about $300,000. Our policy is to have 16.67% of the operating budget in our fund balance, which would be $618,000. So we're a little short in getting to that goal. The balance in the apparatus equipment fund is, at the end of the year, was $1,333,000. Of that, we've got $489 encumbered for the new ambulance and equipment for it, and that's expected to arrive early next year, 2026. Our other funds, as you can see, land and building, we're up to $928,000. Southwick Trust, we're up to almost $75,000. Communications, that's revenue that the tower brings us. It's almost $13,000. Fire prevention fund is up to almost $55,000 there, and our dry hydrants and cistern is up to $177,000. So if you're looking at the budget, you'll notice that we haven't asked for any money for that fund this year because we have enough to do the 2 projects that are in the works currently. Updates on, we've got 2 new call firefighters, so we're excited about that because we certainly need them. And this is how our call firefighter numbers have trended. At the end of the year, we're down to 10, so with the 2 additional, we're up to 12, and they provide a great service to the career firefighters. Some major training. achievements, and I won't read them, but we've got some firefighters doing some great things. This is in addition to all the regular training that they're required to keep their certifications. A lot of training goes on with our firefighters. Building committee. This is where I'm going to hand it over to Paul Blaisdell. He's the chairman of the building committee, to just give us a little update of where we're at with that.
Good evening. So, the building committee has been working since 2021, and in the past year, I'll just quickly review what we've been doing and why we've been doing it. So in April, after last year's district meeting, we discussed the contents of a district-wide survey, and once approved by the commissioners, the survey would be distributed to each physical address throughout the district via United States Postal Service. The 2021 Building Committee mandate was now several years old, and the committee felt that it was outdated, and we discussed requesting a new mandate from the commissioners. We decided that the survey result would provide tremendous guidance with respect to our mandate, and we would ask for an updated version once the survey results were tabulated. In July, the surveys were distributed and the results placed on the fire district website, as well as distributed to the commissioners in the building committee. And that's this 86-page document that we received from UNH. In August, a joint meeting of the commissioners and the building committee was held to discuss the survey results and to map a direction forward. The commissioners were now tasked with providing a new directive or mandate to the building committee. Discussion occurred with respect to forming a financial or funding committee to best determine the method and structure of payment for a new building or buildings. Our new timeline is to present a package at the 2026 district meeting. In November, the commissioners presented a new mandate to the building committee in the form of a chief's recommendation. That again is available on the district website, and it consolidates the needs as determined by the chief and the two deputy chiefs. The building committee is in recess until additional documentation is provided by Lorero Construction in the quest of supporting the chief's and commissioner's request. And that information has been provided by Lorero, and our goal is to start the building committee back up starting next Monday, the 24th of March. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, as I mentioned, it's my intention to start with Article 10 and get this ballot one out of the way. Shall the district vote to amend the apparatus and equipment replacement special revenue fund pursuant to the provisions of RSA 3195C adopted March 7th, 2005 and amended March 20th, 2023 to restrict revenues to the ambulance billings and other emergency services billings, to expenditures for the purposes of apparatus and equipment replacement, ambulance billing services, advanced medical training, vehicle and equipment maintenance, repairs, and service testing. Such revenues and expenditures shall be accounted for in a special fund known as the Apparatus and Equipment Replacement Special Revenue Fund. This fund would be separate from the general fund Any surplus in said fund shall not be deemed as part of the general fund accumulated surplus and shall be expended only after a vote by the fire district at a district meeting to appropriate a specific amount to said fund for a specific purpose related to the purpose of the fund or the source of revenues. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Requires a 2/3 ballot vote. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that to the floor for discussion.
Do I have a second? Would you be so kind as to, you have the names? Okay. And I'm going to have Commissioner Sattler speak on this.
So it's a lot of wording up there. All we're doing is changing one section, and it's the quoted there. The original purpose of the fund says ambulance billing. What we're adding is ambulance billing and other emergency services billing. Currently, the only funds that can go into this account are receipts we receive from billing for ambulance services. There are other services that the fire department provides that we can bill for, such as we're at an accident scene dealing with hazardous materials spill, antifreeze, transmission fluid, gasoline, and whatnot. And we're providing non-ambulance services at an accident scene. We can bill the insurance company for those types of services, and this would allow those funds to go into this fund. So basically, we're just adding the wording so we can put any billing receipts into the fund. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will move straight to the vote. Everyone get your ballots at the table up there. The voting box is here. If I could have the assistant moderators vote first. And then they will be here to run the ballot box when you have those.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But even if I take up 25, you know, right now, I don't want to get carried. Well, I'm thinking I'll show up yeah. So you have an idea? Yeah. But the map.
It would appear that we have all of the ballots. Do we,
Figures get a lie, and liars can figure.
anybody else that needs to submit their ballot? Okay. Declare the voting is closed.
Yep.
It's not doing any votes, so we're just going to count them and be done with it. Call this back to order. Results: 37 yes, 6 no, and 1 non-vote. So that's 2/3 easily. So the motion passes. All right, we'll start with article number 1. To choose all Tilton Northfield Fire District officers for the ensuing year as presented on the ballot, prepared for the same. Actual voting to be by official ballot vote Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, at the annual town meeting. Voting sessions in Tilton and Northfield at their respective polling places and times. The result of the 2 elections in this district was for Fire Commissioner Tim Sadler. Ran unopposed and he was elected, and myself for moderator, and I had no opposition and was elected. Motion on that? Motion and second. Set. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, operating budget. To see if the district will vote and raise and appropriate the budget committee's recommended sum of $3,710,511 for the general municipal operations. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners for $3,740,185 and the Budget Committee for $3,710,511. A majority vote is necessary. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move the Article 2 to the floor for discussion.
Motion, second. Motion's been made in second. Budget Committee going to
Sure.
comment. Thank you.
Okay, well, Commissioner Sattler, he kind of stole some of my thunder with that one slide, but that's all right, though. I just want to point out and reiterate again that we had a 4.4% increase on the operating budget this year, approximately $155,000 over last year's operating budget. And again, the increases are pretty much due to salaries, insurance, and water. Keeping the tax burden and the operating fire and EMS operations in mind, our proposal, if you'll notice on like page 6 of your budget, we whittled it down. The chief's original proposal, we whittled it down another 2.9%. So you see, that's where we came up with a 4.4. So, barring any further discussion, well, I'm sure we'll discuss it, but it's just not a whole lot of changes from last year. Thank you.
I have discussion on this article.
Evening, Greg Hill from Northfield. Can you break it? It looks like about a $30,000 difference. Is it made up of a number of different things, did you say, or is it just one thing that's different?
You're talking about the difference between the chief and us?
Yeah. Board of Commissioners is.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
3.74 and yours is 3.71. What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, we went through line by line. It's not just one thing. I mean, the increase in the overall budget, like I stated, is primarily due to the salaries, insurance, and then a little bit on the water. But as far as us whittling it down, we did whittle down the salaries a little bit. There was, I believe it was a merit pay that was proposed, and we discussed that, and that didn't go through. And then, like I said, we went through line by line. There's a lot of cuts we made here and there. It's not, I can't say a huge number on one specific area, but we cut a lot of areas.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, yeah.
We're voting on the Budget Committee's budget, correct?
Yes.
And so yours does not include merit pay, is that correct?
I'm pretty sure that's what we... Correct.
Thank you.
Speak.
I don't quite understand the situation.
State your name, please.
No. Are we voting for both numbers, or are we voting for a $7 million here by voting yes? You got two numbers up there. One from you people, one from them people. If we pass that bill, we're approving both numbers.
Right. So I'm going to address Lee French from Northfield. No, what they're showing us the difference. We're only voting on the budget committee's budget, the budget committee proposal.
It's not a good way to present it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. At the bottom of every warrant article is a recommendation, and some will say, because a lot of the warrant articles won't have numbers to them, they'll just say this is recommended by the Budget Committee, this is recommended by the Board of Commissioners, or it'll say it is not recommended by the Budget Committee or not recommended by the Board of Commissioners. In this case, because there's numbers, there was a number that was recommended by the Budget Committee, and there was a number that was recommended by the Board of Commissioners. And to answer Greg's question earlier, we actually had a little bit of time between when the Board of Commissioners finalized and sealed their number at the number that it's at, and then within a week, when the Budget Committee met, there was actually an employee that took the insurance opt-out, which is a large chunk of savings on what we pay in for insurance. So when you look at your budget, you'll see the opt-in, or the opt-out, we took that employee up on that, and so the line went up for the opt-out to pay that person to not take the insurance. So that was a big chunk that none of us really saw coming, but because it fell between the time of the commissioners doing their final number and the Budget Committee doing theirs, the Budget Committee number is lower. And there was some adjustments to training. The Budget Committee had an adjustment to the amount of money allocated towards training. And I think the third thing, with the merit pay thing, was actually an incentive for education and having an associate's or master's or bachelor's degree, and that is not part of this compensation package.
Mark Hebert, Northfield. You mentioned most of this increase is due to wage increases. Which line is the wage increase? Because I see the personal administration is only roughly 20,000 more, or sorry, 30,000 more than last year. It's on the front page, sorry. While I'm looking at it.
All right, if you go to page 4, you'll see where it's different than the administrative. Go to page 4 under line 4220. You see where it says fire, salaries and wages. Then you go to the 2025 Budget Committee. And then you look over the difference from 2024.
So what was the one on the
that's
first
it.
page then?
What's that now?
What is on the very first page, line 4155?
That's the administrative increases.
Who is covered under that? That's not salaries?
Okay, can you ask that again? What you're concerned about the first page with the administrative costs?
I was just trying to figure out where the raise for wages was, but there it looks like on the front page it's broken out for our fire professionals and potentially our administration.
When you look at the administrative stuff, you have workman's comp, things of that nature. That's not under their wages. So that's a different section, and that comes under the administration. So yeah, it can be a little confusing, but you're looking at the administration of it on that page, and then you go to page 4, like I said, then you see the fire wages. That's our actual wages.
Thank you.
trying to skip ahead to know how long I need to stay here. This represents the budget committee's number represents a 4% increase. Is that what I heard?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Has anyone done the math of if all of these warrant articles were to pass, what the increase would be?
I'm sure we have it over there. I have not personally done that.
Can somebody come up with that number for me? Thanks.
I can give you the cost per tax rate, but I don't have a percent. I'm sorry. So for example, this 4.4% represents 18 cents to the tax rate in Northfield and 16 cents to the tax rate in Tilton. Obviously, the 2024 tax rate. When you look at the additional warrant articles, Article 4 is 6 cents in Northfield, 7 in Tilton, and Article 5 is 6 cents in Northfield and 6 cents in Tilton.
You have the total number, Kenny?
Okay, I'm sorry, but you're going to speak. Can you do it from the microphone, please?
Yeah. Do you have the total number of what 3.7 goes to when you add those things in? Not the cents per town.
I guess I'm not clearly understanding your question, but
How much, what would the budget committee's number look like if all of these were added together? And then I can do the percentage.
okay. The additional 2 warrant articles that add cost to taxation is $111,000 and $100,000.
Not the 343 for Article 3 and the...
Correct. That money is coming out of the apparatus and equipment fund.
Okay, so it's only roughly another 200,000, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a reminder that the reason we're using the microphones is because it gives a record.
Morris Woodruff from Northfield. I can calculate the percentage for you.
Okay.
If you add all the articles up that they're asking money for, it has. From last year, the increase would be 6.8%.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this article? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
All right. The moderator is in question. We have an assistant. Moderators, if you're ready, we're going to use the voter card. All those in favor, hold up your green card now. All those opposed? Okay. The result is 34-9 in favor. Motion carries. If you could, when we call for the voice vote, could everybody could speak clearly so we have a better idea. It sounds pretty even to me, a lot more even than this vote was. All right.
Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to protect vote, please.
Motion to protect the vote. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry. 9 years from Northfield.
Okay. We don't believe we need discussion on this. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right. That was Article 2, correct? All right. Article 3, Apparatus and Equipment Replacement Fund Budget. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate $343,181 for the purpose of purchasing fire, rescue, EMS equipment, and ambulance charges, with said funds to be withdrawn from the Apparatus Equipment Replacement Special Revenue Fund, established under RSA 3195C, established in Article 11 Act by Article 11, the 2005 district meeting. Funds appropriated from this fund do not affect the tax rate. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. The majority vote is required. Do I have a motion? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. We have discussion.
Mr. Moderator. Article 4. 3. There's 3. This is the portion where we have the ambulance charges accrued, and we buy equipment, supplies, occasionally purchase vehicles. There are no vehicle purchases this year. All of this money is raised through ambulance charges and soon to be other charges. As written, this does not affect the tax rate. One piece of equipment we're looking to get this year is a specialized washer cleaner device to clean the SCBA's, the breathing apparatus, which is one piece of equipment that the firefighter wears that stands between them and carcinogens. And no matter how well you clean it, there is some residue, so the device we're looking to purchase would actually put that whole unit into this machine and clean it even better than it could be hand cleaned. So that's one major expense out of it. The other line that we were looking to increase was the Comstar ambulance billing company, because ambulance charges and income are on the rise, and we really don't have an idea of how much more income we'll have, so we wanted to have more in that line, and if it's not spent, it stays back in the fund. So we didn't want to run out of money for paying the company that gives us the money, so that was one of the things we increased. Very difficult to forecast that, but funds are definitely on the rise. Yeah, the details are all on page 10 of your packet.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Article 3 as written, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. 3 carries. Okay, Article 4, add to design, engineering, and architectural fees. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $111,000 for the purpose of designing, engineering, and architectural fees associated with construction, addition, and/or renovation of a fire station or fire stations. This special warrant article will be non-lapsing appropriation for per RSA 32(7), Roman 6. It will not lapse until either the buildings are completed or December 31st, 2030, whichever is earlier. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners, Budget Committee. Majority vote is required. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move this article to the floor for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Vote made and seconded. Commissioner Sadler will speak on it.
Thank you. One of the pages in your packet is titled Warrant Article Number 4. It sort of goes into more detail in addition to what Paul Blaisdell referred to in regards to how we've gotten to this point. Really quickly, back in 2021, this body paid $100,000 for these purposes. We have spent just over $80,000, I think $81,000 of that. And with the new mission for the building committee that the commissioners came up with, we are looking to do additional work so that we can come back at next year's district meeting with a plan for a new multi-station fire department. And we encourage you to come to our meetings where we're discussing that. As Paul mentioned, the next building committee meeting is next Monday night. So the detail is listed there. So we're asking for $111,000. We feel is, based on the estimates we received, the amount needed to go before this body next year, present you a proposal with cost, diagrams, and those types of things. Happy to entertain any questions, as I'm sure Paul Blaisdell would as well.
Sir.
Ross Cunningham from Northfield. I'd like to enter an amendment, please.
Yes, sir. Following amendment is being offered to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $111,000 for the purpose of design, engineering, and architectural fees associated with construction, addition, and/or renovation of a fire station or fire stations, with said funds to come from the Land and Building Capital Reserve Fund. This warrant article will be non-lapsing. A non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32-7, Roman numeral 6, that will not lapse until either the buildings completed or December 31st, 2030, whichever comes earlier. I have a second.
Second.
Get your name.
Joseph Nachi.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I can speak to it a little more.
All right. My purpose for this is said earlier. The amount that's in this fund right now is roughly $928,000, and if the next article is approved, there'll roughly be $1 million in that account. So in my mind, I'm not here to be against the idea of what the two-station plan looks like or not. And to me, it's about what the rates look like and how it affects the taxpayers. And so for me, that's why I came forward with this friendly amendment to say, I get it, you need to put the pieces and parts together to see how much it costs. I just believe you should be using that account to fund it. And it's not a nix or against the fact that there's a two-station model being discussed. And I understand you have to do further analysis, and I support that. The only thing I can't support is it coming through the taxpayers when you have that kind of money in that account presently.
Paul?
So the budget committee discusses this at great length. If you notice on the following Article 5, the addition of $100,000 to the building and the Land and Building Capital Reserve Fund was not recommended by the budget committee. So our take on that was one or the other, but both of them is too much. And we felt that it would be wise to fund the design, engineering, and architectural fees so that we could present to you next year valid plans for a new station or stations. So the budget committee has kind of taken what your concern is, and we have the same concern. So we did not recommend Article 5, while we are recommending Article 4. Just some clarification.
Just to make sure I understand this, I appreciate the amendment. I think if we look at Article 4 and Article 5 together, Article 4 as amended would not hit the taxpayers. So then would you be recommending that, as a representation of the Budget Committee, that we go for Article 5 instead? I mean, would you still recommend adding to that one before we think about taking the amendment?
Thank you for the question, Helen. I'm speaking for myself, not the Budget Committee. If we vote to amend Article 4, my personal vote on Article 5 would be that we put $100,000 back into that fund.
Tim Pearson from Tilton. I'd like to speak in support of the amendment. I think we all have to keep in mind how much our taxes are and to be looking at creative ways of funding things. I think the source of the funding for this, the capital reserve, is absolutely appropriate. And as a Tilton taxpayer, looking at our apportionment last year, our apportionment for the taxes had gone up 26% from the year prior. That was a really steep increase for us. And I just think it's really important to find creative ways. So I agree. I also echo that this is a very friendly amendment, and I support it.
Mark Hebert, Northfield. For those of you that were at our town meeting on Saturday, I also fully support this because we've created this fund to do such things as what we're trying to do with it, so we should probably be using the money that's there currently. So again, I do support the amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll try to voice vote on this. All those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll vote on the motion as amended. And any further discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is passed as amended. All right, move on to Article 5. Add to land and building fund. See if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $111,000 to be added to the land and building fund, the land and building capital reserve fund previously established. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and is not recommended by the Budget Committee. Majority vote is required. Mr. Ogier, speak on this, please.
Mr. Margarito. At the end of the year, 2031-24, in that line, we have $928,506.06. We're asking for another $100,000 to put in there, so we can get things moving.
Okay, that was in the form of a motion.
Yes. Yes.
I'll stand. Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have discussion? I'm sorry. Mr. Ogier, are you going to speak on this? Okay. Sorry.
No problem. I just want to clarify or to get confirmation. This is not recommended by the Budget Committee. Is this part of the original 3.7 that was in the Budget Committee's budget that we're voting on?
No, the operating budget is different, separate from these warrant articles.
Okay, so this means that this will add to that 3.7, right?
Yes.
Sound confident?
It would be raised through taxation.
And the Budget Committee does not recommend it?
We did not recommend Article 5 because we did recommend Article 4. What the Budget Committee felt was that taking $111,000 from the taxpayers to develop plans for next year's district meeting so that we had hard plans to show you for next year. We felt that that was more important than adding $100,000 to this land and building reserve fund. Now, keep in mind that $928,506 will be used to offset the cost of that building or buildings at the time of construction. So the object of Article 5 year after year has been to build this reserve up such that the taxpayers will take less of the hit when it comes time to build those buildings.
Follow-up, yeah.
Thanks. I guess my confusion is typically when it says not recommended by the Budget Committee, and we're voting on the Budget Committee's budget, you would think logically that it doesn't exist in there.
Okay, so the warrant articles aren't the operating budget for the Budget Committee. We can recommend or not recommend, but these are all voted on by the populace, the taxpayers. So that's, I mean, we don't figure it into the operating budget. And to speak to the operating budget, like I said, was 4.4%. So the number that was given out earlier, I think the gentleman up here came up with like 6.8%. That number that he figured, it's really not that high when you look at the warrant articles, because if you look at page 6 on your budget, you go back there and you look at the warrant articles we had from last year. So that wasn't added into last year's number. So the number, I think we're getting wrapped around the axle with the increase. Yes, 4.4% is the operating budget increase proposed by the Budget Committee. These are all separate for you guys to vote on. That's why, you got to vote on it, and it doesn't reflect it in our budget.
Okay. So I'm basically going to say that we shouldn't add to the land and building fund this year. If you're really going to bring something forward in 26 with the funds that we've just taken away, it leaves us with $800,000 in that account, and we can start building it again the following year once we know more about what we're doing. That's my recommendation.
I have another comment on that. Any other further discussion on this motion? Good.
If those of you who were here when the fund started, I think the plan was to keep saving money a little bit each year and each year. And so when we get to the point of building a building, we'd be paying more cash and not bonding as much, because bonding carries interest. Now, we've reached kind of a saturation point where all of our tax bills are feeling the crunch. So it's been easier when we added 50,000, we added 100,000, we added 50,000. There were years where we didn't. But the goal was to try to build up a fund of a couple $1 million, which would really take the edge off of what we would have to finance. I know there's folks in the room that like to pay cash for things, and some that just want to, go get a loan. We thought that putting money aside every year would save us a lot more interest on the back end when we do go to finance a building. So maybe this isn't the year for that.
Northfield. So if anyone wants to know the percentage, since we didn't do Article 4 and if we approve Article 5, sorry. Yeah, so we're not doing Article 4. If we do approve Article 5, the increase is 4.28% over last year's total budget. If anyone wants to.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The moderator is not in question. The motion does not carry. All right, Article 6.
Before you get there,
Sir,
I'd like to protect that vote, please.
second. Okay, we don't need discussion on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. All right, Article 6. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,535 to be added to the existing fire prevention expendable trust fund. Said funds to come from unassigned fund balance. Funds appropriated from this fund do not affect the tax rate. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Majority voting required. Have a motion? Motion, do I have a second? Okay. Mr. Ryan, you going to speak on this?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is the article where the fees that have been collected through inspections and other functions of the deputy and the inspection department. We take the fees that have been accrued out of general fund or out of the unassigned fund balance and put them into the revenue fund where they can be spent on fire prevention activities and equipment and supplies. So this is a moving into the fund. Money that's already been earned. It's not tax money. It's been all the inspection fees and permits that have been collected through the year.
Discussion on this? Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Dennis Manning, Tilton. I just want to add to what Commissioner Wright said there. Keep in mind, this is something we do every year. We move it from the unassigned fund balance, and I just want to remind everybody it's tied to Article 7 coming up with our fire prevention fund, and that money for that the fire prevention budget. That's you can once you read down the fire prevention expendable trust fund. So we're taking out of the unassigned fund balance to that fire prevention expendable trust fund so that they can operate their fire prevention program. And this year's increase, Deputy Chief Elving has put together a pretty robust program for education out there this year. There's a lot of updating and stuff going on, so I would remind you that's where they go to the schools and they do a lot of public education. Not only that, if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to it, I believe a lot of our fire alarms, if somebody's, or not fire alarms, but smoke detectors come out of that budget as well. So if you have people who are in need of those, they do take it out of that as well. Thank you.
Tim Pearson, Tilton. Mine is more of a comment. It just really kind of bothers me when I read that it does not affect the tax rate. When you're taking money out of general revenues, you are affecting the tax rate because you're taking it out of this and putting it into a capital reserve fund, as opposed to lowering the net cost to taxpayers. So my comment is more, please be careful what you put in there that says it doesn't affect the tax rate, because in my view, this article does.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the article signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to Article 7. See if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $21,416 for the purpose of purchasing materials, tools, and equipment related to fire prevention activities, including but not limited to public education, code enforcement, training, and all other related activities. Said funds come from the Fire Prevention Expendable Trust Fund. Funds appropriated to this fund do not affect the tax rate. The article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Majority vote required. I have a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move this to the floor for discussion.
Pardon me?
I move this article to the floor.
Right, thank you. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Commissioner Saville will speak on it.
I apologize, we don't have the direct slide for this. This was again another item that was distributed in the packet. As Mr. Manley indicated, the money comes from the fees collected. We move it into this fund, and the Deputy Chief has put together quite a lot of items for this year as outlined on that document, but this is where those items are paid for out of this fund. Happy to entertain any questions.
Discussion on the motion. Mark?
Mark Hebert, Northfield. On the nice breakdown you gave us, I don't know if it's first or second side of it, but it says firework overtime. You then go down and say there's bullet points of if it's a private entity doing the fireworks, they pay for it. So if it's privately funded, why is the district paying for the overtime for the firefighters?
Sure. So firefighters don't get paid directly by the provider. The provider gives us the funds and then we reimburse them through the fire department budget. We have to keep track of hours worked and stuff through our records management system.
I couldn't quite hear you, sorry.
So if you hire a firefighter to do a private detail, you're not paying him, you sign a contract with the fire department and you pay the fire department, then the fire department then reimburses the firefighter for those hours. It's a thing that we have to keep track of hours and Social Security and all that, retirement, all that kind of stuff.
Right, so is the $1,760 just what has been paid to the district?
Moderator, can I have permission to speak?
Is that council? Oh, yes, sir.
Very good, Mike. Share that very good.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sean Bellamy, Deputy Chief. The $1,760, that is the fireworks overtime to the Old Home Day display.
Speaking to the mic.
Okay, sorry. That's the fireworks overtime to the Old Home display. Per state law, once those fireworks hit the ground, we have to have a detail in place until those fireworks are expelled in the air, and then the first check is done. Those fireworks can leave the scene in typically 10 to 12 hours. There actually is legislation to like those laws, which would be great to allow us to have less time on scene, but we're required. So this is the Old Home Day fireworks only. The private display, and that bullet point, my point was if anybody else in the community, like the new hotel or anybody else wanted to have a fireworks display, we charge that separately. So the $1,760 is just for the Old Home Day display. And the Christmas fireworks, it's the two displays, I'm sorry. Christmas fireworks and Old Home Day.
Thank you.
Follow up. Don't go too far. I could be mistaken, but Old Home Day Committee and the town of Northfield or Tilton, whoever does the Christmas fireworks displays, are not this fire district, correct? Because Old Home Day Committee is a nonprofit by itself, so that would be a private entity.
So we're not part. We contribute to the Old Home Day and the Christmas fireworks. We contribute that labor. That's required by law.
We contribute that labor.
Tilton Northfield Fire District, you guys do. You contribute that labor to there. Otherwise, the Old Home Day and the Christmas Works Committee would have to pay those fees.
Any further discussion on this article? Hearing none. All those in favor of the article signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay? Ayes have it. The motion carries. All right, Article 8. See if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,518 to be added to the existing communications tower expandable trust fund established by warrant Article 11 at the 2021 district meeting. Said funds will be withdrawn from the unassigned fund balance. Funds appropriated to this fund do not affect the tax rate. The article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Majority vote is required. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. So, Commissioner Hozier, you're going to speak on this?
Yes. This is the money that comes from the communication tower in Park Street. And the money that's used, half of it goes to back to the budget, and the other half goes to maintenance on the buildings. This year we've done the tower up on Shed Road. We put batteries and cables in it, which comes to $3,365. Cemetery Station, we did all back at the station there. It had to be graded. We hauled in ledge pad and had that graded. That came to $4,279. And also the doors on Park Street Station, the 3 doors to get in, they needed to be replaced. We replaced them with new locks. That was $6,300. It left us with a balance of $12,605.57. By putting this in here, it'll bring it back up to $24,123.57.
Discussion, sir.
Question is, this is the communications tower that we voted down at one point, and we ended up with it. How much revenue, it was supposed to pay for itself, and it was supposed to generate revenue at some point. How much revenue did it generate over the last, well, since inception, say? Year to year?
I'll speak to that a little bit. This year, the tower generated twice that figure, so $23,000 worth of revenue, of which half is what we're moving into that fund, and the other half went into the budget to lower taxes. I'm sure we could give you the numbers for years past. I don't have them in front of me.
How exactly did that lower taxes?
The $11,518 that goes back into the budget doesn't have to be raised in tax.
So that's money that you say in here that it doesn't affect the tax rate. It's the money that came in that half, some of that.
Well, referring back to Mr. Pearson's comment that I guess the total amount did affect the tax rate because that $11,500 lowered the tax rate. This amount, because of how that fund was set up, it doesn't affect the tax rate, nor could it, because it's required to go into this fund. And then I guess it does affect the tax rate because we use that money to do repairs and buy equipment that wouldn't have to be purchased out of the tax.
I heard something that I was a little curious about. What is the purpose of this fund? Is it solely supposed to be for the communication towers?
Mr. Bunbury, when this fund was created back in 2021, and it states that 50% of the tower revenue shall be used for costs for repairs, maintenance, construction costs, and bonds of fire stations, radio communications infrastructure.
Did you say fire stations and?
Correct. It says repairs, maintenance, construction costs, and bonds of fire stations, radio communications infrastructure.
So I didn't hear an and when you
I mean, it's not that specific.
Okay. How much money do we need in said fund? Because it's already currently $12,848.15. What is the yearly maintenance for these towers we didn't want?
Is that a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator,
Sir.
I'd like to answer part of that question. So there are a series of repairs that we declined to do each year on each of the buildings, on Center Street, on Park Street. We're very careful to not do too many repairs on Center Street because we feel we're going to be replacing the building and having a new building somewhere. But there was security camera things, there's the key card access rather than a push button code or keys or things like that. So there's been the $12,000 that we use. There was actually one project that we had to back out of, but it's to be used. It's able to be used for repairs on the buildings, not just radio towers, as related there. So there are things that we would have put into the operating budget for repairs, but because we're able to do them from this fund, it lowers that line on the repair and building budget in the operating budget.
Yes, sir.
Right. So to be clear, we collect about $24,000, $25,000 a year. That revenue goes up. AT&T is the only tenant on the tower right now, and the lease agreement makes them go up 2.5% on their rent every year. So this year will be $24,000, $25,000 that we collect in revenue. Half of that goes to offset tax rate. The other half goes into this fund that the commissioners use to pay for things that need to be done at the fire stations. And we don't maintain the tower. The tower is 100% owned by the company that pays us rent. They maintain it, they repair it, they put the tenants on it. If another tenant goes on it, the rent goes up, we collect more money. And as projects come up that need to be done at the fire stations, the commissioners can use this fund instead of the operating budget to pay for those expenses.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the article as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
No.
The moderator has not a question, the motion carries. Okay, Article 9. Add to health insurance deductible ETF. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $300,290 for the purpose of adding an existing health insurance deductible. Sorry, let me go back. For the purpose of adding to the existing health insurance deductible expendable trust fund. Said funds will be withdrawn from the unassigned balance, fund balance only. Funds appropriated for this fund do not affect the tax rate. The article was recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Majority vote is required. I have a motion. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, I move this article to the floor for discussion.
Do I have a second? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd just like to clarify, you said 300,000, but it's 3,290.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Correct. That's what it says.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak a little bit on the article. This fund is available for employees that need some help or get a reimbursement on their health insurance deductibles for a variety of needs. We'd like to, experience has shown to keep approximately $5,500 in this account, and adding $3,290 will put us at that $5,500. A recent change with insurance from the insurance company is that they've lobbied hard against this. So our contribution is going to be limited to only 50% of an employee's deductible reimbursement. So we're not able to give as much. So we're going forward. We'll see if the 5,500 is adequate, but this may trend down as we're not allowed to help employees offset. But the goal each year is to have about $5,500, and that's $32.90 will get us there.
Have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of Article 9 as it's written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries. All right, Article 10, as you know, we have already covered. Move on to Article 11, establish a contingency fund. See if the district will vote to establish a contingency fund pursuant to RSA 3198A and to raise and appropriate the sum of $36,550 to be put into said fund. This sum should come from unassigned fund balance. Any appropriation left over in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. Funds appropriated from this fund do not affect the tax rate. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and the Budget Committee. Majority vote is required. I have a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I bring it to the floor. This fund we've had for,
Can I get a second first? Yeah. Thank you.
okay, this fund we've had for several years now. We've never used it. The only time we'd ever use it in case of emergency, and the only people that can do that are the 3 commissioners.
Okay, any discussion?
Can you hear me? Okay. How much is in the fund already?
It's being established. There's none. I'm sorry.
So the fund lapses every year.
It has to be reappropriated every year.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Oops. No? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Yeah.
The chair is in question. Can we have a card vote on this, please? All right, all those, ready? All those in favor, hold your cards up now, please. All those opposed? All right, 28 to 9 in favor, the motion carries. All right, last article. Transact any other business that might legally come before the meeting. Anyone have further business? Circle.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the building committee and the budget committee for their hard work. These are all volunteer positions. People are taking time out of their busy schedules to try to present you with a workable budget and provide the services that we all need. I would also encourage every one of you to attend any of these meetings, the commissioners' meetings, the building committee, the budget committee. They're all open meetings. The time to work out any issues is during those meetings. Once we get to this point, the budget is already pretty much cast. Your opinions matter to the committees that I'm on, and I encourage each of you to attend those meetings and have your voices heard.
Mr. Moderator?
Sir.
I can make a motion to adjourn.
The motion's been made and seconded, but it would appear that we have more business.
I just have a question.
What
is? Am I allowed to?
Motion's been made and seconded, and it's
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, there you go.
I just was curious, what is the Southwick Family Trust for? What is it supposed to be used for?
So Southwick Family Trust Fund is money left from when Bert Southwick died, and he left this amount of money. What we are allowed to use it, we're only allowed to use the interest earned each year, and for whatever purpose that the commissioners want to use it for. We haven't used any of it yet. I would hope that someday in the future that we'll figure out what to do with that money.
I just want to thank the moderator for his first shot at being the moderator.
All right.
Hey, Mr. Moderator? Restate my motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Second. Frivolous question without debate. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody, for
Oh, I gotta shut the camera.